It's one of the most haunting questions of the 20th century. How could a country like Germany, a modern, cultured, scientific nation, just completely unravel and fall into a totalitarian dictatorship? And in only 15 years. It's a terrifying thought. So, okay, let's dive into this. We're going to break down the fatal equation that led to the collapse of Germany's first democracy, the Weimar Republic.
And that really brings us to the heart of the matter, the big question we have to ask. Was this democracy, born right out of the ashes of World War I, just destined to fail from its very first day? Was it doomed from the start? Well, let's investigate.
All right, so picture this. It's 1918. The German Empire has just collapsed after a devastating defeat in World War I. And into this huge power vacuum steps a brand new democratic government. But here's the thing, it wasn't born into a peaceful, stable world. No, it was born right into the middle of a perfect storm of crisis.
And when you look at the timeline of those first few years, wow, it is just relentless. The war ends and boom, the Republic is established. But immediately, they're forced to sign the humiliating Treaty of Versailles. Then you've got attempted coups from the right, like the Cap Putsch, and constant fighting with the left. It all comes to a head in 1923, with total economic disaster and, yep, another attempted coup, this time by a tiny little fringe party led by some guy named Adolf Hitler.
This really gives you a sense of the sheer weight of the problems they were facing. I mean, think about it. The economy was completely bankrupt. Society was torn apart, with deep divisions between rich and poor, and millions of angry, disillusioned soldiers coming home with nothing. And politically, you had extremists on both sides literally battling for control of the streets.
And this is so important to understand. The Treaty of Versailles wasn't just some political document. For many Germans, it was a profound national humiliation, and it created this powerful, poisonous myth, the stab-in-the-back theory. The lie was that Germany hadn't actually lost the war on the battlefields, but was betrayed from within by its own politicians. This idea would eat away at the Republic's legitimacy from day one.
And if that wasn't enough, then came hyperinflation. To pay its massive war debts, the government just started printing money, more and more and more of it, until it became completely worthless. I mean, the situation became absurd. People's life savings vanished overnight. And this photo says it all. This woman is using stacks of cash for kindling because it was literally cheaper than buying firewood. 201 billion. Just let that sink in. By November of 1923, that was the price, in German marks, for a single loaf of bread. It's an unimaginable number. And it signifies one simple, devastating fact. The savings of the entire German middle class, the very bedrock of any stable democracy, were just wiped out, gone. But then, something pretty astonishing happens. From about 1924 to 1929, things actually stabilize. Helped by American loans, the economy bounces back. It became known as the golden years of Weimar, a period of incredible cultural creativity and relative calm. It seemed like the worst was over. But underneath the surface, a storm was gathering. So you've got these two completely different stories happening at the same time. On the left, you see the story everyone wanted to believe. The economy is roaring back. Industrial production is up. People are working again. But on the right, you see what was really happening in the shadows. Extremist groups like the Nazis, they hadn't gone away. They were just waiting, sharpening their message, promising work, freedom, and bread to anyone who still felt left behind by the recovery. You see, after his failed coup attempt in 1923, Hitler had a kind of revelation while he was in prison. This quote shows it perfectly. He realized that trying to overthrow the government with force was a dead end. The new strategy? Use the tools of democracy to kill democracy. The plan was to hold their noses, get elected legally, and then use the power of the government to tear the whole system down from the inside. A much more patient and a much more dangerous plan. And here's the proof that for a while, their message just wasn't landing. In the 1928 elections, right at the height of those golden years, the Nazis were basically a political joke. They won a measly 12 seats in the German parliament. And this is key. As long as the economy was humming and people felt secure, the politics of anger and resentment just didn't have much of an audience. Then, October 1929. The Wall Street crash in New York sends a massive shockwave across the entire globe. For Germany, it was a catastrophe. The American loans that have been propping up their economy, they dried up overnight. And the German economy, which was built on this fragile foundation, just collapsed. This was the moment the extremists had been waiting for. The Great Depression hit Germany harder than almost anywhere else.
And the human cost was just staggering. Millions of people lost their jobs, their homes, their sense of dignity. All that fragile stability of the golden years, it vanished almost instantly. And it was replaced by the same kind of desperation and poverty that had plagued the Republic at its birth.
Okay, so let's look at the numbers. This is our baseline. This is 1928, before the crash. Unemployment is around 2 million people. And look at the Nazis. They have just 12 seats. The Communists have 54. The Democratic parties are pretty firmly in control. Got it?
Okay, now watch what happens. By July 1932, just 4 years later, unemployment has tripled to 6 million people. And the political result? It's just off the charts. The Nazi vote explodes from 12 seats to 230, making them by far the biggest party in the country. The connection is it's impossible to ignore. Economic desperation directly fueled the rise of extremism.
So now the Nazis are the largest party, but they still don't have a majority to rule on their own. The whole political system is paralyzed. And what happened next wasn't some violent revolution in the streets. No, it was a series of quiet, backroom political deals that would prove to be absolutely fatal for German democracy.
And this is the part of the story that's just chilling. Hitler was handed power. The old-school conservative elites, the industrialists, the army generals, the aristocrats, they were terrified of a communist revolution. And they looked at Hitler and his movement, and they thought, we can use this guy. They made him chancellor, surrounded him with their own people, and figured they could control him like a puppet. It was a monumental and catastrophic miscalculation.
And the speed of the collapse from that point on is just breathtaking. Within weeks of Hitler becoming chancellor, there's a fire at the Reichstag, the parliament building. It's used as the perfect excuse to suspend basic rights like freedom of speech and the press. A month later, the Enabling Act is passed, which effectively makes Hitler a dictator. Then boom, 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 trade unions are banned. Other political parties are outlawed. By August 1934, it's all over. Democracy is dead. So, once they were in power, the Nazis used this two-pronged strategy to get a complete and total lock on the country. On one hand, you had a seductive propaganda machine creating this illusion of national unity. And on the other, a ruthless terror machine that crushed anyone who stepped out of line. And you can see that dual approach so clearly right here. On the left, you have the spectacle of the Nuremberg rallies. It gave millions of people a sense of belonging, of purpose, of national pride. It was an intoxicating vision. But on the right, you see the grim reality for anyone who opposed them. The stormtroopers, the midnight knock on the door, and the concentration camps that sprung up almost immediately. It was the carrot and the stick, on a terrifying national scale. This was the birth of the police state. And organizations like the Gestapo, the secret police, they didn't just target major political enemies. Their real power was creating this constant atmosphere of fear and suspicion. They had vast networks of informers encouraging regular people to spy on their neighbors, their friends, even their own families. A critical joke, a private complaint, anything could get you arrested. In effect, society itself became the prison. So when you step back and ask, how did this happen? It wasn't just one thing. It was a fatal equation. You start with a deep sense of national grievance from the war. You add a catastrophic economic crisis that makes people desperate. You introduce a charismatic demagogue who offers simple answers and finds someone to blame. And then, the final, crucial ingredient, the complicity of mainstream leaders who thought they could play with fire and not get burned. Each element alone might be survivable, but you put them all together, it was lethal. The story of the Weimar Republic is more than just history. It's a chilling reminder of just how fragile democracy can be. And it leaves us with one final, vital question that we all need to think about. What are the warning signs we should look for when any democracy is in danger?